my therapist as we do this. Okay, so let's begin the meditation with, okay, I'm going to meditate and let that be communicated to the entire spectrum of your being. Allow all the different parts to respond. Allow them to respond in a way that is cooperative. Listen to the intelligence in the body as it guides you. Oh, you meditate. Great. Now, sit like this, make your legs like this. So listen to that intelligence as you feel the impulse to make adjustments. Know that as you're making these, as you are responding to these impulses to make change, minor, great, understand that it's that intelligence in the body that you've made contact with, that's communicating with you. So rejoice that they be aware of your legs, be aware of the point of contact between your legs, your feet, in your environment, your seat, the floor. Be aware of your spine, upright, not uptight. Be aware of your arms. Listen to that intelligence as it guides you. Perhaps you need to hold your hands. Perhaps you need to separate your hands. Let that intelligence guide you. Gently bring awareness to your head and neck. You want your head and neck to be centered so there's no conscious effort in holding them in place. And become aware of the natural placement of the mouth, teeth, tongue, the jaw. The soft resting of the eyes. And soft resting for some could be completely closed, others could be slightly open or open in any measure, all the way to fully open, looking straight ahead. Whatever feels, whatever gives you the sense of soft resting. And with the body cooperating, begin to feel how the body is already entering in some form into its own meditative space. Notice the calm arising in the body. Notice the pleasantness arising in the body. And by merely turning our attention to this pleasantness, to this peace, to this calm arising naturally in the body, it helps us to be aware of other places in our being that are responding, that have measures, that have qualities similar to the calm in their own space, similar to the pleasantness in their own space. So bring attention to the breath without any intention to control it, without any intention to force the mind to focus on it. Just as you breathe in, you simply are aware in a very loose way. This is in breathing. And as you breathe out, you in a loose way are aware this is breathing out. And have a good sense of being present. This is what's going on right now. And as you are aware of this is what's going on right now, no matter what it is, whether it is pleasant, unpleasant, whether it is neutral, behind that, have a sense of joy of knowing, I am aware. By bringing attention to the similar qualities of calmness and pleasantness in the body and the breath, notice them also in the mind. And they may not be as prominent as they are in the body or the breath, but eventually they will be the most prominent place where you are aware of the calm, the pleasantness. So don't worry about the degree to which they are showing right now. As soon as you notice any measure of them, rejoice. And let's consider ourselves as though at a threshold, at a doorway, and we are about to commit ourselves to go through it, to enter into a space that is further qualified the deeper we go into it by this calm, by this pleasantness. And as we go deeper into it, the clarity of our mind will become more and more evident. The natural luminosity of our consciousness will be more and more evident. First indirectly, and then closer to more and more direct experience of this clarity, this radiance. That's all we're doing, just being present with what is already here, being present with the commitment to fully enter, feel that commitment in a palpable way. And palpable doesn't mean strongly, just any measure that you can say, that's the sense of the commitment, even if it flies by, not allowing you to stay with it for too long. But all the moments when you're able to catch it, no matter how long it lasts, rejoice. You feel that commitment. And like something swinging and you're waiting to come to you so you can jump on it. And don't worry about missing it. So when you feel that commitment somewhat steady, now really apply yourself to that commitment with a deep breath, with that. So this what will be swinging for you will be the calm, the pleasantness, or the, if some of you are already having inner sensations. So whatever is giving you some sort of palpable sense that I am touching the meditative space. Okay. So no matter how vague it may be, no matter how subtle it may be for now, try to stay aware of it as you make that commitment breath. So whatever it may be, a sense of touching even. And with that, gently, fully through the nose, staying connected to it, breathe in through the nose. And then let yourself go. And let yourself go, let yourself go, let yourself go, let yourself go, let yourself go in the body, let yourself go energetically, let yourself go emotionally, let yourself go cognitively, let yourself go, let yourself go. Leave the breath alone, let the breath return in its own natural rhythm, in its own natural pace, but stay in that momentum of letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go, letting go. And as you're letting go, noticing that you're still aware of that sign, and that sign is becoming more palpable, stronger, more palpable, stronger. And stay with it as you let go, let go, let go, let go. Feel that momentum of letting go in the body. Feel that momentum of letting go in the body. Stay with it, let go, let go. Notice the signs enhancing, rejoice. Notice the signs enhancing in the body. Notice the signs enhancing in the breath. Notice the signs enhancing in the mind, to whatever measure, even half of a percentage, it's still an enhancement. Stay with it. Let go, let go, let go, let go. Deliberately relax the body. Deliberately relax the body. And as you deliberately relax the body, you reach a point where there is no more relaxing to be that can be done in the body, but you continue with that momentum of relaxing, and you feel now the more subtle aspect of your being are now being tapped into, and now you're able to relax those more subtle aspects. And the more subtle can still be physical, like the heart beating, the movement of the lungs. And as that is enhancing, notice that it is also enhancing energetically. There's also an enhancement taking place also in the mind. The clarity is becoming clearer. The radiance is becoming more radiant. Those inner sensations are crispier, brighter, more vivid, and have a more sense of presentness rather than remembering they happened. But there's the more closer sense that it is happening. So while you're in that space, we are going to cruise a boost turbo. And with that intention, find that sign that is more prominent for you, stay with it. And as you stay with it, with the intention to go even deeper through the nose, gently, fully breathe in. Through the mouth, release. And as you release, let go, feel the letting go taking place, rejoice in the letting go, rejoice in the enhancement taking place. Allow the breath to return naturally all by itself, staying in the depth that you've reached. And again, for the second time, through the nose, gently and fully through the nose, breathe in. And through the mouth, notice the enhancement, rejoice in the enhancement. Let the breath come back naturally. Stay in the depth, stay in the depth. And as you stay connected to the depth, again, for the third and last time, full breath through the nose, gently, fully, and through the mouth. And take a moment to just almost do like inventory or just adjust yourself, accustom yourself to the space, looking at the calm. Where do you feel it? The pleasantness, where do you feel it? It is this calm that will become utter peace. It is this pleasantness that will become utter bliss. It is the distinctiveness of these sensations arising that will become pure clarity and vastness. It is the vividness of these very inner sensations appearing that will become pure radiance. And these themselves will have a natural focus, collection of collecting the mind collected, accompanying them with joy, noticing these signs, staying in them skillfully, gently raise your awareness to the space in front of you at the level of your eyebrows. With your awareness there, you begin to feel kind of a sensation in the forehead. As soon as you become aware of it, whatever, however it appears for you, pressure, heat, cold even, tingling, magnetic, electrical, however it appears to you, immediately rejoice. And as you are aware of that sensation, I would like you to think of if you've had that experience, if you grew up in the West in the modern time, maybe you probably had this experience of feeling shame. However, it may have been either someone pointing to make you feel it, or you yourself pointing to yourself, making you feel it. and just go to that feeling of shame. No need to try to look for a dictionary for you to know what it is. You know what it is. And just like what the First Noble Truth is asking us, be honest and be present with what is, and understanding that sometimes the unpleasant is what is present. So stay with it. Is it unpleasant? Where do you feel this unpleasant sensation? And perhaps the shame is sometimes so unpleasant, so painful, that you may feel that you may prefer not to be aware of it. But forget that and just really be aware of it, the space that it is occupying. And understand that in some way or another, it is a teacher. It is trying to point to something. So let it point and look in the direction where it is pointing. What is it giving you a sense of other than that a discomfort? That sense that makes you want to shrink, that sense that makes you want to hide your face. What does your face mean? Why do you want to hide it? Why is it it's asking you to do that? What is the size of your presence mean? It wants you to shrink. What is it that is pointing to? What is it that it is asking? And if you're still having some difficulty bringing that sensation up, probably because you're very independent. They refuse to be summoned. They prefer to come on their own. So think of a situation where shame usually comes up, and just think of it. That part of you where that summons the shame, it will not know the difference between you imagining it and the actual situation. And when that feeling comes up, notice how complex it is. It's not just one feeling, it's a complex feeling. There are so many other emotions that you can say that are connected to it, but they all have one theme, something about identity. And perhaps what it is pointing to is, hey, you're out you're off center. That is, you're not centered in your natural being. See if you can feel something in that somehow points to this identity, hiding the face, shrinking your presence, as though the presence that you are presenting or the presence that is being felt is somehow something off key about it. And that you that feels the shame, perhaps if somehow you're able to go back to the first time you felt that shame, the feeling you felt in your body, Did you want to shrink? Did you want to hide your face? Did you want to run? Did you want to disappear? That uncomfortable you holding on to shame. And we're going to do a little exercise, a little visualization in whatever way you can. You don't have to necessarily see it necessarily with your inner eyes with colors and shapes, but a sense of it. So either imagine that you pointing, and what it's pointing to not is not what's the cause of the shame. If that is what all automatically comes to you, that's okay. But if it points to the cause of the shame, then look there. If it points to this is the you that you have stepped away from, the you without the shame, the you without a reason to have shame. So look, somehow get yourself to look at that one, the you without shame. How that you feels face bright for everyone to see. Your presence, you're not forcing it to be acknowledged, but you're not afraid of it being acknowledged. You without shame. So in a way, shame is pointing to that. It wants you to get there. It is the you that you feel you have a great potential to be. And you somehow feel that you fall short of being that. That potential doesn't see you as being one with shame. That potential is connected to you. The day when it finally fully manifests in 3D, it will be because of you. So in its own time and space, it is very proud of you because it exists because of your efforts, of your convictions. So let that you without shame, let it come to that space that you feel in the front of you, in the forehead. Feel its bright presence. And keep acknowledging how radiant that you without shame is. Not that it is incapable of having shame, but it has no reason to have shame. It is the you fully living in your nature, fully living in your truth. so that you, without shame, knows the path. So let that you guide you. Be open to its guidance. Be open to its protection from shame. Open yourself to its guidance, to its protection, with deep respect, deep trust, and deep gratitude. And deliberately relax, let yourself go deeper into the space of meditation as you do so. Gently, with the wish to be strongly connected to this potential self, invite this presence to come dwell in your heart, and notice how happily and eagerly and with so much joy it responds to your requests. Coming to the crown of your head, feel the sensation of that presence at the crown. Continue to relax, continue to make yourself more sensitive to the sensation of that presence. Notice how the body is reacting, and slowly moving through the crown, descending, arriving eventually in the and open your mind to it, to be guided, to be protected. And now get ready to arise from the meditation. First, step into just the space of the calm, the pleasantness, the clarity, the radiance, the focus. Noticing yourself in that space, in the depth that you are in that space, rejoice. With the intention to arise, take a nice deep breath that you feel and hear in through the nose, out the mouth, and deliberately become aware of your immediate surroundings through all your senses, sense of touch, sense of hearing, sense of smell, sense of sight. Okay. All right. That was a long meditation. I I have to uh, my way out of it. I didn't say it was going to be a short meditation, so I don't have to feel guilty because of that. Okay. Now, the topic of shame is something that I think it's uh, a few of the qualities and characteristics that you could say either modern humans or more especially humans, you can say in the West, have become masters at self uh, to experience them. Uh, but because of the freedom that we have, the freedom, and it's not the good freedom, I'm talking about the freedom of remaining ignorant. We have nature gives us freedom, but not that nature gives us freedom, but you can say our very nature is freedom itself. That's why we can have all this range of experiences. So because of this freedom to have all these range of experiences, so it's something that is a gift. Anger is a gift. Desire is a gift. All these emotions are gifts. But unfortunately, because of our misunderstanding of how to use these gifts, if I give you a, um, an iPhone as a gift, just because the iPhone is a gift doesn't mean that you're supposed to use it as a spatula to fry your eggs with. Okay, you can do that if you want to, but you have the freedom to do that. But don't expect the iPhone to behave and to function the way it's supposed to. Okay, so the same thing, well, not exactly the same thing, but somewhat exaggerated. The same way with anger and jealousy and all these kinds of emotions, when because we exaggerate what their use is supposed to be, then they end up being what I love that term, dysfunctional. They're no longer able to function the way they're supposed to function. Okay. So shame is one of those. It's a beautiful gift. It's a beautiful thing to be able to experience shame. It's a kind of a wisdom, you could say. All these emotions in a certain way uh, are expressions or communications coming from wisdom. But unfortunately, because we're not in line with wisdom, because we're not aligned with reality, because we are holding on to our misunderstandings of reality, then these communications, these messages become warped, and then they become dysfunctional, no longer able to guide us properly. Okay, shame. The way we understand shame is when like fortunately for me, I've never had uh, a parent, either my mother or my father, tell me I am ashamed of you. And but some people have had this experience where a parent either once or even several times tells that person, I'm ashamed of you. and that brings a particular experience where we hold on to that, because that person is an authoritative figure in our life. That person has an authority, whether we consciously acknowledge their authority or not, they have it subconsciously. There's a subconscious acknowledgement that this person has authority. So this authority means this person is aligned with truth. This person is supposed to give me truth. So whatever this person is giving me, it is truth. So when this person tells you, I'm ashamed of you, so in a sense, you feel that that person is communicating a truth to you. There's a part of you that is accepting it, that is accepting it as identity. There's something about me that is shameful, that I should be ashamed of. Okay, and that's one way of experiencing shame when it is directed at you. Uh, and there's the shame where someone is requesting you to have shame, where they, for some reason, they feel that you should have shame, but for some reason you're not showing it. When I say, aren't you ashamed? You should be ashamed, right? And that's supposed to be a kind of seeing a perception of you lapsing your nature, take, doing something that is against your nature, and they're pointing that out to you. What you just did is not your nature. Is not something that is expected of you, and they're asking you, aren't you recognizing it? That what you're doing is something, you've gone off your nature, you've gone off what is expected of you, and they're asking you if you have shame. So that's mainly the ways that we experience shame, coming from outside, where we are asked to bring it up, or where someone has it and it wants us to take possession of it. I am ashamed of you. You are making me have this uncomfortable feeling. You're making me having this uncomfortable, embarrassing feeling about my identity. Okay. Now there's the shame uh, that we sort of generate ourselves. Like we do something, or we did something, and there's a part of us that makes us feel that we ourselves, we are witnessing that I am doing something that is not in line with my nature. And because of that, I hold on to that with shame. I'm ashamed of having done that. I'm feeling embarrassed that I have done that. When the topic of shame comes up in the, it usually comes up when they're talking about uh, morality or ethics, or proper ways of relating with others, skillful ways of relating with others. And it's usually, so you have a category of, of, uh, of ways of emotions or afflictions that are called wholesome. That is, you should have this kind of feeling, you should have this kind of emotion. And in there is lacking shame. Uh, and then you have another category of what I refer to as unwholesome. That is, these are the things that they work against you. These are the things that actually uh, do not work for your benefit. They're actually afflicting, you're perpetuating suffering. And in that list, there's also the same thing, lack of shame. Okay. So it depends on how you are approaching it. Okay. There are moments, like I said, shame and all those kinds of things, they are gifts to us. They are gifts for us to, and they're gifts in a sense that wisdom is speaking to us. It's reminding us of something. So once we are reminded of something, we're supposed to say, oh, thank you for reminding me. Okay. And then you move on to where, to the direction that whatever it is that the reminder is reminding you. So the dysfunction of it is we take the message and we hold on to it. We don't let the message go. Yeah, that's where the dysfunction comes in. Okay. In the which is going to seem like a digression, but when when we feel guilt, when we feel that we've done something wrong, and there's at the same time there's a part of us that wants restitution. There's a part of us that wants to be free of that guilt, right? And that we and depending on how you were raised in society, the way to do it is a kind of punishment, right? You did something wrong, you are punished, and then everything goes back to normal. It's like um, you cause some sort of damage, and now you repaired it, and now things are back to normal. If only it would be that easy. Okay. Uh, Sometimes towards ourselves, we hold on to the guilt and never let it go. No matter how much we punish ourselves, we don't think we punish ourselves enough. And sometimes, depending if it's coming from someone else, expecting the punishment, the person may think that, oh, you were not punished enough. What there is, we haven't reached equilibrium. We haven't reached the place where an imbalance was called a place of being balanced. So to be able to get to that place of balance, and we really need to look at what is it that we are that is making us feel shame. We really need to look at it. We really need to, no matter how it is painful, you just know it's going to be painful. And to the degree that you're able to stay with the pain, you stay with it to that degree. But really really try to go into the feeling of the shame, and why are you ashamed? Why is that something for you to be ashamed of? Okay. And only when we are really allow ourselves to see what is it that we are ashamed of and why we are ashamed of it, and it's according to what it's the message in its pure form. It's not what we are reading into the message. It's not the added things that we put on the message. It's not the glossing of the message, but rather the message in its pure form. And we receive it. When we allow ourselves to receive it, then and only then, when we actually take the necessary steps of remedying the situation, when we will feel that, okay, now I can let go of this. Okay. One of the positive ways to look at shame is to understand that shame is has a teaching for us. One of the things that is teaching us is that you are not right now, you are very off your natural state. And if you continue in that direction, you will be further off from your natural state, and you will suffer even more. Okay. So in a sense, that's what shame is sort of announcing. That's what it is warning us about. It's about warning us about right now you're being fake, basically. You're being fake to who you really are. That's what a functional sense of shame is supposed to provide us. Like when you really do something that harms someone else, what we have done, we have committed we could say we have committed sacrilege against the principle of love. We have committed sacrilege against the principle of compassion, because that is a thread of our reality, that uh, there is really, uh, in a mysterious way, no real separation. There's a constant dynamic of interrelating constantly taking place. And when we act against that principle, we are acting against nature. We are acting against our nature, because our nature is that. And we are acting against uh, the fabric of reality. We're acting against love, the fabric of love, the fabric of compassion. And and the very discomfort that we are feeling because of shame is sort of telling us, you're tearing the fabric of love, you're tearing the fabric of compassion, you're tearing the fabric of your nature. So when after because it is alarming us of that, then we should be, oh, thank you very much that I actually have this alarm in my system that can help me now go deeper into this pain, into this suffering, into this fake identity. Uh, Imagine if your hands were on fire and you didn't have any system that tells you, A, you're destroying your hands, you're destroying the capacity to be able to hold things, you're destroying your capacity to be able to uh, to help others, to help others lift things, because there is a system that tells us that, and that system is unfortunately pain. We just and it is not supposed to be something you want to continue. It's supposed to be something that you want to stop as it is taking place. So that's what the shame is telling us. Uh, there is a line that you have crossed, a line about your identity, a line about your selfhood that you have crossed. And the feeling of shame is to tell us that we have crossed that line. So if we have crossed that line, then when we recognize that, just like when if your hands are on fire and they're burning, you immediately remove your hands. So and that's it, you've taken care of it, and now you have to nurse the hand, of course, or whatever, right? So in the same way, when the shame sounds the alarm, then what we need to do is to uh, go to the process, listen to the message, but we don't dwell in the shame, thinking somehow the shame is pointing to our real nature. That is, the shame itself is our nature. What we are ashamed of is our real nature. And then the shame, which is supposed to be a beautiful thing, that's supposed to tell you, A, you're stepping away from your nature, stepping away from your selfhood. Now we sort of flip it around, thinking that, I have found my true nature. And that's the kind of shame that we hold mostly in modern times in the West, that flipped sort of dysfunctional kind of shame, where we believe that what we are holding is a truth about our true nature, and we are ashamed that we have that as our true nature. We are ashamed that this is our identity. If you take into consideration, not even if you past lives, just this past life, in the sense of when you were a baby, your personality has gone through so many changes. There are things that you have done that you did them innocently, and now you will not do anymore because you've grown, you matured. So in the same way, whatever it is that we may have done that we were ashamed of, we did it when we were not as mature as we are now. And it's because we are mature now, that's why we are able to have a sense of shame towards it. So having that sense of shame towards it, I'm talking about when we have this sense of holding on to shame. Okay. The reason that we are able to have shame is because we have a recognition of that is something that we should not go back to. But that should be the message, and that should be the end of it. We shouldn't be holding on to that in the past as though this is how we are right now. Just like all those things you did as a baby that you don't do anymore. Yes, you did them in the past, but they're not, all right. How many of you had diapers as a baby? Okay. Or now that you don't wear diapers anymore, unless you have some, I don't know, medical situation, it's nothing to be ashamed of, but but you have the capacity right now to take yourself to a place where you don't have to, uh, do number two on yourself. Okay. Uh, so right now, if that is something that you would still be engaging, I still haven't learned how to go to potty. Okay. I don't know if some people may have had some big medical condition, but let's say if it's out of laziness. Okay. Out of laziness, you just refuse to train yourself to go to potty. Okay. So maybe that would be a sense of shame. That would be a sense of shame. The example that I'm trying to draw here is that was in the past. Leave it in the past. Now that you have the recognition that this is mainly when we've done something that we are ashamed of. Okay, this is the response to that. I've done something, and there's a strong sense of identifying that that was me. That is not that was me. That is the real me here right now. And then, the very fact that you have shame is a sign that you're not that person. You're no longer that person. There's already a distance from it. So because of that itself, we need to cease to identify with that personality, and use all kinds of reasoning and all kinds of ways of arriving at you are not this person anymore. Okay. Yes, that action. Now you're prepared to have functional shame, right? Functional shame that I'm not going to carry this action in the future. I would be ashamed if I were to do that. Okay. There, there are there are there's the shame, which is sort of like personal integrity, and there's the shame, which is a sort of like what is my standing in society. Okay. Shame goes into those two realms, and you want to have both of them. The functional sense of guilt, which is a sense of holding on to your integrity. Moving forward, that is not something that I will intentionally engage in the future. And that is the identity that I have right now. And that's a shame. That is a functional shame. That is a shame of a gift, making proper use of the sense of guilt. Okay, and that's the shame of having integrity. Okay, and it should be so strong, and it should be revisited constantly over and over, not to develop pride, but to have, so that we will not fall prey to misidentifying ourselves in some incident in the future, in some event in the future, to remind ourselves, this is who I am, this is who I am, this is who I am, this is who I am. And then allowing yourself to be free with it, not be attached to it. Okay. Perhaps in the future, there might be something grander that you identify with. Okay. But in this present moment, uh, there is a proper evaluation of, this is something that I should be holding on to as part of my identity, and and at the same time you're free with it. You're not holding on to it, not grasping onto it. And this gives you, if I were to cross the line of being this person, I would be ashamed. Shame will come to warn me when I'm stepping out of line with this. And when you're ready with that sort of functional shame, then you have integrity. And that it's when we're trying to when we're trying to bring this to outside, where we want to have a good face, as it is said in certain cultures, uh, when you want to be recognized a certain way by your peers, uh, the one that is internal, the integrity one, it doesn't matter if no one sees you. It doesn't matter if no one will ever come to know this good quality in you. You still remain in it. It doesn't disturb you. And this should be stronger than, it should be actually this kind of integrity that should sort of be displayed outward. It should radiate outward. That becomes the kind of shame that you have, that you would not want others to think of you this way. You would not want others to think of you a certain way. And I mentioned that there's a danger in that one, because society is very fickle. And because it is fickle, what is considered to be something to be ashamed of today may suddenly change. It becomes something to be not to be ashamed of tomorrow. Okay, so uh, as long as it is not contrary to your integrity, then you can adopt it. You can align yourself with it. But if it's contrary to your integrity, then you can stay away from it. And unfortunately, we encounter this kind of thing with when we are in communities. We want this evolutionary imperative, it seems, wanting to fit, wanting to be a provider for the sustenance and the perpetuation of the community, where we will allow ourselves to fall into group thinking. That's a wonderful thing, group thinking. It helps move. But if, unfortunately, if this group thinking is stained, then the individuals become in danger of being stained by this group thinking. Uh, uh, there, there are there were certain cultures where uh, you would be ashamed if you were to go. You're supposed to go out a certain phase in your life, and then you're supposed to come back with a trophy that you've killed someone or killed some kind of enemy outside of the tribe. Okay, and if you didn't come back with that kind of a trophy, you will be shamed. Okay, so the kind of shaming that society places upon us, we we uh, we don't necessarily have to abide by them if they are uh, contrary to our own integrity. Okay. The main point of the shame that we're talking about tonight is the kind of shame that we identify with, especially when it prolongs, when it seems to brush, when it seems to be the characteristic that sort of uh, fill our entire life. It seems to be our identity, and and we are putting it away somewhere. And because of that, and this is the reason why we need to look at it. The reason that we are holding on to it because some stupid part of us believes that it's best. Somehow we have found truth, and then we must abide by truth because we have found it, and then we must hold on to it because truth eventually for our benefit. Okay, so based on that crazy understanding, we hold on to to a dysfunctional shame, and we carry it with us. We carry it with us, and because it is a kind of a belief that it is a truth that we are holding on to, even if it doesn't come to the surface, it will leak into how we interact with others. We will not. It will give you a sense of disconnect. We will not really be able to form a true bond of connection with others because we are hiding what we think is our true self. That we think it should be hidden. That we think that it should not be put in display. And because there's a part of us that we feel that it should not be put in display, there's a sense of holding. And because of the sense of holding, then we are unable to make true connections. And it's not that we are consciously wanting not to make true connections. In fact, we are going out there wishing to make true connections. And in fact, we are looking for someone who may accept this part of us that we are ashamed of. And for that person, when we finally encounter that person and looks at, and somehow we feel brave, or we feel safe to display this part of us that we are ashamed of. And there's a part of us hoping that I'm not going to transfer to you, oh, yeah, that is something to be ashamed of. I'm ashamed of that part of you too. That we are hoping that's not that is not what is going to be the result. We are in a sense hoping that this person will accept us despite what we are, despite this part of us that we are holding on to, as we are holding on with shame. We're holding on to, I wish I didn't have this a part of me, but here it is. It's part of me. So in a unconscious way, we are hoping that person will see us, even though we don't see ourselves. It's like we are asking the person to please see me because I don't really see myself. I'm outside of my nature. And by showing this to you, I'm hoping that you will see me so that I can see myself. Because when we feel the person having accepted that part of us, and I have to say seems, and it's not like uh, let's say uh, I'm going to go way out there and use an extreme example. I murdered someone, okay, and I'm ashamed of it, okay, and because of the shame that I carry with me, it seems that the shame is protecting me from murdering people in the future. So it seems to be a good thing, but because I'm identifying that I am this murderer, the murderer is the real me, and then somehow I am somehow masking, somehow hiding this true me, and I present a me to others. This me that I'm presenting to others, there's a part of me that's that say, wait a minute, your real you is that murderer. So the real you that you're presenting is a false me. And you're going to speak from that place of falsehood. You're going to speak from that. Now, when the person that you finally feel safe with and say, yes, I murdered someone, and you don't present in your present character, in your present personality, any signs that you are still this murderer. When the person perceives you, hears you, the person is not saying, oh, I accept you as a murderer. That's not what the person is telling you. That's not the acceptance that the person is doing. Because who wants to accept a murderer? But the person is seeing you for who you are, and the person is saying, I'm accepting you. The murderer that you think you are is not you. And when the person accepts you, and somehow it allows you to see this non-murderer, and now you're able to see, you're able to detach yourself from that personality of being a murderer. And even though this might be an extreme example, but it is the same thing as the baby with the diaper. You're no longer the baby in the diaper, but that baby in the diaper is connected to you. It's part of your continuum, you could say. Part of your continuum, not your continuum. Yes. And if you take that into past lives, you may have done worse things than Hitler, but that's not who you are right now. If we were to hold on to the past as our identity, and with this dysfunctional guilt, and when dysfunctional guilt is because I think I'm hiding my real self, because this real self is to not be presented. There's a sense of me that whoever I'm presenting is a fake self. I'm gonna have this double pain of knowing I'm a murderer and I'm also a liar. And I have to lie, I have to cheat about presenting who I am. And of course, this is gonna uh, only make the pain of the shame even stronger. Because remember what the shame is there for. The shame is there. When you committed murder, you stepped away from your nature. You desecrated the fabric of love. You desecrated the fabric of compassion. Of course, you should be ashamed of that. Of course, shame is doing its job, saying yes, you stepped away from the nature, from nature, but you stepped away from nature. Not that you dive into non-nature, and then I don't want know nothing to do with my real nature. Okay. Uh, if we were to consciously do that, we would simply be in eternal pain, because that's what pain in a way is telling us. We are stepping away. We have stepped away from our nature. That means If pain is pointing to stepping away from our nature, that means the nature that we stepped away from is opposite of pain. It is indeed Satchit Ananda. I have to step away from and borrow some Hindu terms. Okay, Satchit Ananda, and it's Ananda is is uh, is one of those qualities. It's bliss, and it's not a bliss in a sense. And you've heard me say this many times, and I to keep reminding you. And it's not a bliss in a sense of very good. Let me give you a reward. Okay, it's not a reward kind of bliss. It is simply your nature. And I'm going to explain it to you this way. If at the core of your being, your nature is, this is just for analogy, okay? So to understand what I mean by bliss is not a reward for you, but it is a quality of your being. And the only concept that we are aware of, that we can ascribe to it, is what we know as bliss. So we call it bliss. Okay. So here's the analogy of how to understand it. Imagine imagine, for example, that you were fire by nature. You are fire by nature. If you are fire by nature, then for some reason you stop being fire, you stop being your nature. Whatever in whatever form you find yourself when you're not fire, that would be bliss. That would be pain. And when you go back to just being fire again, that will be the same thing as being bliss, being blissful. Okay. Okay. So it is something inherent in our true nature of freedom. When we are truly in the core of our being and our bones, free, simultaneously with that, there is this bliss. There is this blissful consciousness, this blissful awareness. Okay. So that's what the shame is telling us. When we engage in forcing others to experience pain in some way or another, when we step away from our nature, what we are experiencing as the shame, the pain, the unpleasantness of the pain, is a reminder we step away from true nature, step away from our nature, our true nature. So what is our true nature? Bliss is not our true nature. Bliss is a quality of our true nature. Okay. It's a characteristic of our true nature. The only word that could really explain our true nature is freedom. And because of that, because of this freedom, that's why we are able to experience shame. That's why we're able to experience pain, because we are completely free. And because we are completely free, when we are in imprisoning ourselves in some sort of limited identity, it is painful. Try to take the entirety of vastness of space and try to put it inside, I don't know, inside of a what? Inside of a marble, inside of uh, inside in your hands, the entirety of space. Uh, yes, it's impossible to grab onto space, but imagine if you were able to grab onto it and try to squeeze all that vastness into the just the space of your hand, in just the your hand. That would be impossible. And if you were to try to do that, that would be very painful. So when we try to concretize our identity, trying to say, this is what I am, this is what I am, We're trying to put a limit on something that has no limit. And because we are trying to put a limit on something that by nature has no limit, that very process, we experience it as pain. And that's why there's an unpleasantness connected to shame. It is a message. Hey, we are stepping away from your nature. You're stepping away from being free. When you engage in that behavior that goes against love, that goes against compassion, you're going against nature. And sooner or later, your conscience, when it's beginning to wake up, it will feel the pain of it. Okay. So what we need to do is to really know if we have, especially we have lingering shame, really look at it. Why do I have the shame? And one of the things that we will immediately one of the things that we will immediately recognize is a lot of the layers of the shame that we carry, we borrowed it, we imported it. And when we really realize, wait a minute, I'm holding on this shame because of so and so, then we can easily get rid of that. But we will not be able to easily get rid of it until we actually look at it, look at the shame, be in the discomfort of holding on to shame. Okay. And when we finally realize, when we finally get to a point where we say, I did this, that was shameful. And if it was really something that was disturbing reality, that was disturbing the fabric of love and compassion, if it was really something that did that, then you can say, now I have wisdom. Now I know what that is. Now I know that's something to stay away from. And understand that this is not your nature. This is not your identity. And because of the need of making reparations, then you have to do something. You have to see yourself do something so that the shame can go away. And it has to be something that is equally real for you. Now, don't go over the top. Don't say, okay, all right, I will cure cancer. You can say, I will devote my life to helping find a cure for it. And then just witnessing yourself doing that, that will be the remedy. That will be the way of pulling, taking that dysfunctional sense of guilt, dysfunctional sense of shame out. But if it's not something that you're able to do, then don't promise it just because it sounds nice. Okay. Promise something that is really something that will take some effort and that you can actually do. And when you're doing it, as you do it, know that I'm doing this as a remedy for this. I'm doing this as a remedy for that. And you continue doing this, continue doing it. And eventually that shame will just vanish. Okay. And it doesn't mean that now that act is no longer something to be ashamed of, but that holding on to that identity as though that's the real you, that is gone. That grasping onto that false identity will just vanish. Okay, because you're witnessing yourself, identifying yourself with something else rather than the habit of identifying yourself with that false sense of self. So that's you could say the measures to take when you find yourself in holding on to that kind of a shame, and understand that also shame by itself is not necessarily a good thing, not necessarily a bad thing. Okay, there are moments, there are times when shame is the appropriate response, but it is always a message. It's not an identity for you to hold on to. It comes up, you examine, okay, thank you very much. What's the message you're telling me? What is it that this thing, that's what Joe said. This is not a reason to be ashamed of. Okay, move on, get out. Okay. But when you say, I did that, I hurt this person, I hurt that person, I have stepped over I've stepped over the fabric of love. I've harmed the fabric of love, and I need to I need to repair that, and genuinely, consciously do something that you feel is a powerful way of addressing it. Right? And there's so many different things that you can do. Whatever it is for you is a powerful thing to do, and give thanks to the messenger for bringing you the message. Give thanks to the shame. Thank you very much for bringing me this message. I'm awake. I am alive. That I'm able to have this feeling. That I'm able to hear this message. Okay. And then, okay, now read the message. Don't just put it on the mental. Don't just put it on the table, coffee table, and then you keep looking at it and okay, I'll read it later. I read it later, but there it is, taking space on the table. Okay. Open it, read it, and then see if it's a message for you to just toss away because I was holding on to this all this time. uh, and there's a kind of shame, and uh, it's a shame of identity, but not necessarily because of something that you've done, but an identity that you're associated with. Like, oh, look at all those people who are in my family. Oh my goodness. I have to identify myself as one of them. That's a big one. That's not necessarily something that you can just say, well, I did this and I did that. And the thing that you might want to do is run away from them. And so when they ask you, oh, how's your brother, your sister, your family? Oh, they're another country. Can I meet them? They're in a different time zone. So there's always this, it's like that lie that you have to present all the time. And that presenting that lie all the time, your conscience is going to beat you up for lying, for constantly lying. And that sense of connection, you will never be able to feel it. But understand that that's them. Even though this is my twin, that's another person. That's not your identity. They may still be in diapers at the age of 40. That's not you. So holding on to that as though that is your identity for you to be ashamed of, as though, and ask yourself, how have I transgressed the law of love? By just being who I am, and just because I happen to be born in to be with these people. Okay, that's not your identity. Don't borrow it. Okay, you don't need to borrow your identity. Right? Or something you should have done that you didn't do. If you still feel that it was something that you should do, do it. If it's impossible for you to do, then what are you beating yourself up for? You can't do it. So let that go. Let that identity go. I should have done that. Then instead of hearing yourself, I should have. Okay, look at it. Okay, can I do this? And then lay out the plan. Okay, these are the stages that I'm going to do it. And just seeing yourself sometime engaging in actually doing it will be enough, and the sense of shame will go away. And if you look at it and you say, look, see, this is impossible to do. I cannot go to the moon. So I cannot be ashamed of myself that I never went to the moon. Okay? That's impossible. I say, oh, okay, I see the impossibility of it, and then shame will go away. Okay? That's why we have to look, so we can say, is this something that we can do something about or not? And if there's something to do about it, do it. And once we do it, then the message will go away. The messenger will go away. But until the messenger has a satisfaction that its message was read, the messenger will remain there. Okay? Until shame feels that you have listened to it, that you have addressed the concern that it has. Even if it's oh, this is not something to be concerned about. Oh, thank you. Now let me go. You've read my message. That's addressing it also. All right? Uh, go necessarily into, I think I touch it a little bit, the sort of classical ngotsa telme. That's ngotsa is a sense of integrity, and telme is the sense, a concern that you have about your standing in society, that you will not do something to deliberately harm your environment. Okay. And that's the line you will not cross. And then if you were to do that, you will have shame for, you will have shame for doing that. Okay? That would be a proper shame if you actually do something to harm society, to harm environment. And if you have done so, then do something about it. Not anymore. Now I advocate for stopping pollution. So stop being ashamed of having, stop holding on to the dysfunctional sense that you were once a polluter. Okay. Read the message so the messenger can go away. I think that's it. It is time or past time. Any comments, questions?
Hey, Phuntsok.
Hey.
How are
Hi,
you
Jen.
doing?
Okay, how are you?
I'm great. I had a question just to to ask you to expand just a little bit more on what you were talking about when you kind of mentioned this. Sometimes you might be relating to someone and they are attached or they're identifying with something that they're ashamed of, and you're just seeing them. And you talked about it, but I that feels like such a familiar thing that happens all the time, and
Mm,
I was just maybe wondering if you could expand on it more. I don't really know what my question is, except for that I feel like maybe I
mm,
find myself in that situation often and then don't know how to
mm.
communicate.
So it's like you are doing something, or you are being a certain way, and someone is feeling shame in themselves because of because of what you're doing, and they're telling you, "I'm ashamed of you." That's the one.
No, it's more like you were giving an example of like someone who murdered someone,
Okay.
and
Mm-hmm.
then they identify themselves as a murderer, but you might
Mm-hmm.
not see that in them, but there can be a lot of distance between what you see and how
Mm-hmm.
they themselves. And I was just imagining what would it be like to navigate that situation where you could communicate with that person about what it is you see if you don't see the murderer, because sometimes someone can be identifying so deeply with something, it can be painful or challenging for them to identify with not
Mm-hmm.
being a murderer, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Like it isn't always comfortable to let go of the shame.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. You pointed something. Uh, the reason for holding on to shame sometimes, most of the time, is because we feel that we have to hold on to it. It's we somehow feel like it's kind of a justice, especially that kind of a shame. It's some kind of a justice that we are imposing upon ourselves. Now, when in that situation where you are the one relating with this person who's holding on to this identity that they are ashamed of, and what you said it in your very question, what you need to do is to constantly remind them of what you see. At first, they will not believe you because they believe that at first they probably the person will probably think, she bought into my lie. She really bought into my lie. She thinks that I'm really this other person when I'm really this person. So what you need to do is not just sit down and okay, describe you to you, but in those spontaneous moments when you feel that that self, which is not the murderer, is is uh, is being displayed, make a great commotion of recognizing it, sort of surprise them that, in that moment of spontaneity, when that person thought that that sort of let go of holding on to that the murderer that they think that they are, and they are this other person, and this person just showed up, and you point to it. You make a big deal out of that personality showing up, and really praise it, but not in a way that feels artificial, not in a way that feels like you are uh, uh, doing too much, but really show how you value that. Okay, so it's a constant. We have you have the the uh, I don't want to say duty because it sounds like you may not want to do it, but it falls on you to constantly remind them, and especially in those moments when that shining self is showing up, and then remind them again, even though when they don't want to believe what you're saying, and show examples, and especially show examples, because the mind that is holding onto that identity believes it is holding on to proof. So you have to show proof otherwise, point out the proof otherwise. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Any other comments, questions?
Hey, Phuntsok.
Hey, how you doing?
Hey, how's it going? Um, Thank you again for this talk. Really lovely.
Mm.
I have I guess a sort of a question in two parts. I'm thinking about like, like shames that like somebody has that like, I guess I'm thinking like, I love my parents very much, but I was raised in a like religious, very religious Christian shamey household.
Mm.
And so like I guess I have shames that I don't agree with. Like I think like like a very classic one, like my parents are very, very afraid of all sexuality. And so
Mm.
like I just have like, it's just part of me because this was how they dealt with reality, was like anytime that they encountered like the experience of like acknowledging sexuality, just shame.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of how I was fostered growing up. And that's not what I like believe now. I think there's a healthy place for sexuality, but yet it's still kind of part, like I feel like I'm just trying to square that.
Mhm.
And I guess the other part of like my thinking about it was that like it feels like because as like as you were saying that like shame is a gift and it's a messenger, like I guess I was trying to sort of, it feels like a lot of the times like the shames that we have, like we hold on to because it does something for us, like we almost like we enjoy our shames, which is
Mhm.
why we don't want to let them go.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if, like you were talking about how like that shame points to your true nature, if there's like, if part of what's going on with that kind of that we can call it vestigial shame, of like it's like a shame that lives in me but that I don't agree with. And
Mhm.
like, is it that when the shame comes up, it's the two ideas that are in conflict with each other, and it's almost like my internal self has to choose which is my real self, and it's almost like I'm trying to choose the like the my parents' ideas as a way of honoring them, and that like it's a like double reverse shame, where the shame is trying to tell me like, no, like the thing that you actually experience, like you're, this is like, like sex is okay, like it's cool, like to be attracted to somebody, but that then I'm like trying to wrestle, I'm trying to find a way to land on like, no, I need to sort of be the way that I was raised, like because to not do so feels like rejecting my parents who I love,
Hmm. Hmm.
um anyway, that's a whole mess. But like I guess the idea is just shames that, like, it's just, some shames are very simple, like, oh, I murdered somebody, I feel shamed
Hmm.
about that. But
Hmm.
other shames, it's like, I don't agree with this, it's just there.
Yeah, yeah, and that's somewhat connected to the when I was talking about someone of authority, and by authority means that you believe this person is telling the truth, is holding on to truth, and that person gives you something, and you take it as truth. So sex is something to be ashamed of. You at some level, that part of us that uh, holds this person with authority, holds onto it as truth. And even though in your own journey, you have discovered that, no, that's not our truth. So the conflict is not so much whether this thing is true or not, but whether or not, like you said at the very end, by letting this go, am I dishonoring my parents? So that's where, so it's not so much that you're concerned about, do I somehow hold on in, accept that sexuality is something to be ashamed of, but perhaps what the shame is really concerning about, am, how do I honor my parents? How do I honor my parents? How do I still, how do I see that, yeah, what they said was wrong, and that in the same breath say I still honor them? And that's where the conflict may be. And yes, there are a lot of these shames that we just adopt, and later on they're still with us in some form, some way or another, some kind of a underlying shame, and it shows itself. And because it's a kind of identity that we have fastened ourselves onto ourselves, and because of that, it will show itself in the way we relate with others in some form or another, unconscious especially. So uh, it's the same process to really look at the shame, and even though it seems like, oh yeah, that's no, that's something my parents instilled in me, and I know it. Okay, and how do I get away from it? Right? It seems to be very simple that way, in the sense that I've already identified that there's nothing more to identify. But the thing is to really look at it, to really be with it, because there's a part of you that has accepted it as a truth, as a reality, and that is real. Uh, you know, uh, your relationship with someone, and there's something about your personality that may be awkward, and it is, and you know it is awkward, and you know you have to do something about it, but you're not able to overcome it yet. Then the thing is to be honest to yourself and be honest with your partner and say, I have this, there's this awkward thing that I've not been able to take care of it yet. So in this case, I have some shame around sex, even though consciously I don't believe in it, but it's part of me because of how I grew up. So that's the first honesty, right? Acknowledging that it is there. Don't think that it is completely some foreign thing that has no connection to you whatsoever. Somehow it was adopted as part of the personality. And now to look at it. Uh, yes, your parents convinced you, but a part of you was convincible. That part of you that was convincible, have a talk with that part of you. Okay. What is it about that was said about that? But your parents told you many other things. Some of them you don't even remember. Some of them you can outright say, I don't eat with spoons. And you have no shame about that. Okay. But there's something about this that resonated with you. That maybe it was the way they presented it. Maybe it's the level of realness, the level of possible truthness that they presented it to you that impressed you so much. Maybe that's what you need to investigate. So the thing is to simply just look at it, acknowledge that it is there, and just look at it. And what is it? What is it that I'm keep asking? What is it I'm ashamed of? What is it that this is ashamed of? What is it? What is it that it is ashamed of? Why is it ashamed? And so let it speak its message. I hope that was okay. All right.
Hey,
Okay.
Phuntsok,
Hey,
I've got a
yeah,
question.
who's talking? Oh,
Um,
there you are.
yeah, can you see me?
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
This one's around like how you see yourself and how society sees you, right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking about like the question is around like shame in terms of. So I have this personal like concern that I'm ashamed about,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it feels like every time I engage with it, the pain is so strong that I either deny it or I overindulge in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to figure out a way to engage this pain, the pain that comes from this shame, in a way that allows me to process it fully,
Mm-hmm.
but not to get too caught up in it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's this conflict going on in my head of I don't feel like I've really got the message that I needed to get yet,
Mm-hmm.
because I find myself falling back into it like
Mm-hmm.
over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also there's another voice saying that no, you've got it. Get over it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like the question is, how do you navigate a scenario like that where it is that conflict scenario where I'm not sure whether I've got the message or not. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, am I overindulging in this, or
Mm-hmm.
am I solving it?
Yeah. One of the signs of overindulgence is you're not really moving away from it. You don't see yourself actually moving, making any steps away from the experience itself. Where just like Isaac mentioned about there's a kind of sometimes a kind of a joy sometimes holding on to the shame. It's a kind of a righteousness kind of joy. Yes, this is painful, but look at me. I am doing what is right. I'm holding on to this pain. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, right? Uh, so when we find ourselves uh, rehearsing this, allowing this to take place, allowing especially the sense of a kind of I should be in this pain, and and you have to find it. I should be in this pain. This is where I should be. We have to find it, and once you find it, and you somehow uh, uh, almost come face to face with that within you that actually perpetuates it. You will have a sense of it. You will have almost as if you will come. Uh, you will have a sense of the part of the mind that actually is almost like the hand that is cranking the wheel, so to speak. And it is a sense of it is my responsibility to make sure that this continues. because there's a conviction that this is what needs to be done. Okay. So before you will be able to actually encounter this Wizard of Oz hand behind the machine kind of thing, the way to get there is is to be truthful to your, as far as your capacity is concerned. When you have any experience that is painful, and there is a higher aspect of you that tells you there's a lesson to be learned in there, but still you're unable to stay with the pain, you don't have the capacity to stay with it, is to acknowledge, I don't have the capacity. And when you acknowledge, I don't have the capacity, what you're really doing, you're summoning, you're asking wherever this capacity within you, wherever it is stored, you're asking that capacity to be released, so you can have that capacity. But you have to make that acknowledgement. I do not have the capacity to hold on to this for too long. So that's the first. Acknowledge that. But when you step away because you recognize that you do not have the capacity for that, also recognize what I'm doing is stepping away. I am not actually solving it. What I'm actually doing is stepping away so that I can gain more strength. So next time I can be able to stay with it a bit longer. And don't force yourself to stay with something when you feel it is becoming unbearable. Don't force yourself. What you do when you force yourself is that you reinforce the sense of identity. There's a part of us that is a witness that is saying, is this identity or not? Is this identity or not? And that part you will be so overwhelmed by it. That part will say, oh yeah, that's definitely identity. Then it will have a stronger hold on you. Okay. Because you really don't want, the truth of the matter is there's a part of you that doesn't want this to continue. And we have to acknowledge that part. Okay. So after you gain some resilience, capacity to stay longer with this, then maybe don't don't stay with the pain with an interrogation flashlight. Give me your message, give me your message, give me your message now, give me your message, give me your message now. Okay. So you don't want to do that. You're not interrogating the messenger. The messenger is not some criminal that you're interrogating. It's a messenger. It's delivering a message to you when it feels the conditions are there for you to be able to read the message. So just be with it. Give it some tea, give it some crackers. And when you're able to stay in its presence long enough, then it feels comfortable, then the message will come to you. Okay. But don't force the message out. Okay. Okay. This is as much as I can stay in your presence. Now I need to leave. I know I didn't take the message yet. So I'll be able to get some more strength of time or whatever I need to be able to be with you next time. Okay. And that's the first thing to acknowledge. It's not going to be easy, especially if it's something that has been enduring for quite some time. And since you mentioned it has to do with your environment, how constantly, when you're not in the presence of this messenger, constantly remind yourself, society is so fickle. And then remember, have actual examples. There was a time this was right to do. There was a time this was beautiful. There was this time this was ugly. There was this time this was considered to be virtuous. And look at it and look at that. So I can't really depend on society to sort of really give me they're not a reliable source, you could say. And how am I relating with society? Am I harming it? Am I intentionally harming it? Am I unconsciously harming it? So you recognize you could say you understand your proper role in the environment. It is not it is not your identity, and you are not its identity. It's a relationship that you have. And it's a relationship where you give, it gives. You take, it takes. And all these things are relative. All these things can be negotiated or negotiable. Okay. So when you're not facing it, that's how you prepare yourself. That's how you prepare yourself so you can have the time and the strength to face it. Is to have those once in a while. Oh, look at that example. Oh, look at this example. Okay. All right. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right, everybody. I would love to stay, as I always love to say, but we really went over time. Thank you for your questions. So we're gonna do the last meditation very quickly. The meditation that we've always been doing. Maybe, yes, it's gonna be very fast. Believe me. Okay, sit. Done. Okay, see how fast it was? All right, it was too fast. All right, okay, okay, okay. All right. Uh, have a sense of bring into mind, I'm going to meditate. Remember how it felt in the body and reconnect, rejoice. Remember how it was in the breath, connect with that, rejoice. Connect with how it felt, remember in the mind, connect with that, rejoice. Stabilize with a deep breath through the nose, gently, fully breathe in. Staying connected, drop, let go, let go, let go, let yourself go. Feel it enhancing in the body, feel it enhancing in the breath, feel it enhancing in the mind. Rejoice, rejoice, let go, rejoice, rejoice. Immediately feel that we are all together in the same space, in your space, in a circle. Immediately feel the sense of us in the center of the circle appearing as a bright light. Now see lines of light connecting our hearts with that bright center. Understand us, the toe is us, as same as the hands. And that bright presence expands. Wherever the light touches, it becomes part of the us of the light. Until we are all absorbed into it, just think of us. Each individual is just a part of us. It expands to the entire neighborhood. Everyone, everything is part of us, and expands until it covers the entire earth. And us, the oceans, the rivers, the mountains, the birds, everything, every life is us. So in the same way, the compassionate concern, immediate, spontaneous concern the right hand has for the left hand, we feel that same readiness, concern for the water, for the ocean, for the fish, for the birds, for the sky, for the clouds, the mountains, for our neighbors, for the libertarians, the socialists, the right wings, the left wing. It's all us, all humanity, all life, all us. And we have the same compassionate readiness to help, to align when they are no longer aligned or misaligned with love, with life, with compassion. And with keeping that sense of us, the light begins to shrink back. And as it shrinks, it leaves a residue of itself. So everything becomes a bit brighter. And that sense of us is still left with them until it comes back again to the very center of our circle. And we feel ourselves still connected to that sense of us. and the light separates, divides into each one of us. And as it fills us with itself, we feel all of us is in us, in all of us. And whatever you may have gained tonight, be grateful to that part of you that made it possible. And with compassion and love, wish to share it. Think of something that concerns you sincerely and dedicate this beautiful energy to help address this concern. Gewa di gewo kun sunam yeshe zozo sheng sunam yeshe le chung we damba kunye toba shu. Feeling the joy, stay connected to it with the intention to come out. Take a nice deep breath, feel it, hear it in through the nose, out the mouth. And deliberately, consciously reconnect with your immediate surroundings with that sense of joy. Connect again through your sense of touch, sense of hearing, and sense of sight. Okay, you can all get into the groove of Nizam. All right, thank you very much, and have a good night, everyone.
Thank you, Phuntsok.
Thank you.